Hello and welcome to TrishRockTV and Energy Shift, changing energy, shifting perceptions. This week on the show, I'm honoured to introduce the awesome and beautiful Lisa Murray, decoding the mysteries of you. Lisa is an earth mystic, a creation catalyst, and word alchemist. She invites you to tap into the mysteries of you so that you can be everything you came here to be. Her transformational events and adventures invite you to rediscover the magnificent and unconventional choices you could make, and she walks beside you as you make them. Stop Waiting, Start Creating and Living Beyond Burnout are her first two non-fiction books. Her mission is to bring authentic leaders and conscious change creators together to generate transformational, beyond logic choices that create greater futures. Wild Heart's Mysteria is an undefinable, unconfinable experience of the mysteries. Not from the legends and myths of the past, it's a creation of and for our multi-dimensional futures. It's about new and original awareness whilst acknowledging the contribution of the old where it's still relevant. Many years ago, Lisa asked the cosmos to let her know when there were new creative energies available on planet Earth for her to play with. That brought extraordinary experiences that still astonish her today as they show up. As Lisa travelled around Europe and Hawaii last year, she knew she was seeding something big and new, tidying up the long gone past and allowing her creation energies to stir. Now is the time to dive much deeper into all that has been seeding and germinating in these last years. I can't wait to delve into this discussion. It's my great pleasure to welcome Lisa to the show. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Trish. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Just reading, those words that you've written there. You truly are a word alchemist. It just is exactly who you are. That description, it's perfect.
Yeah.
and how you serve in this lifetime, it's brilliant. So yes, I just needed to mention that.
Thank
All
you.
right. So Lisa, what is it or what has led you to explore the mysteries of who we are? Is this something that you've always been interested in from when you were like a child or a teenager, or has it grown in your awareness these past decade or decades?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, look, I think I've always been very curious. You know, my parents would come home from teacher-parent interviews and they'd say, well, your teachers are complaining that you ask too many questions, you know. And of course, I was asking the questions they didn't know how to answer most of the time because I did have that real curiosity. And funnily enough, especially as it pertained to, say, ancient history, you know, I was like, but what about this? And what about that? And so I feel like it's always been there, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely always been there. But then I think that over these past years, more and more I've been looking at it and going, you know, what we think we know right now is such a small part of what we used to know for a start, right?
Yeah.
And not only that, what we could be aware of that maybe we haven't even considered exists.
Yeah.
So I think that's been the beginning of this process in terms of looking at, well, you know, what are we? Who are we?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting with the schools. Yeah, I think even now, for the children who have these questions, they're still very difficult to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't mind if there's no answer because that just sends me on an adventure, you know.
Absolutely.
But to be told you're asking too many questions, I'm not sure that's a great strategy because I think we could all ask more questions, actually.
Yes. Yeah. And asking better questions. Mm.
Yes.
And so for the people who are exploring their self, their life, why am I here? Why is everyone else here? all of those universal questions and that inner knowing questions, what really stops us from knowing that mystery of who we are?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think there's quite a few different things, okay? And I might or might not talk about all of them. We'll see. It's like I've got a list in my head, because I'm very observant and I notice what stops people.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of people, it's literally fear, and that fear can come from past life stuff. It can come from not fitting in to those little squashy boxes that all their friends are in. It can be that fear of exclusion that many of us have experienced many times when we have actually gone out of that sort of comfort zone of what's actually known. And I think there's such a we're living in a very interesting time at the moment where holding on to what is known seems so much more important than actually going, hey, is there something better available? And so with that, of course, there's also all the judgment that we judge who we are, who we're not, who we should be. There's this long list of judgments, and of course then we start to define ourselves, and that probably for me is one of the biggest things, because once we define ourselves, once we go, this is who I am. Now, of course, I've given you a description, right, of who I am in this moment, but I can tell you that description changes about every 6 months, right? Because I am changing really a lot. And so to actually know who I am and put words to it is a very limiting thing. And we're very good at trying to define ourselves and then fit ourselves into that definition as if that is who we are. And I really see that if we as a society would get more, more willing to be in the unknown, to live in the unknown, to live as the unknown, then we would sort of lose our obsession with, making the right choices, for example, because that to me is all about killing the mystery. When you try and make the right choice all the time, it kills the mystery, and it kills the magic as well, of course, and when I look at all of those things together, it's what I would call a resistance to deathing. So it's a resistance to leaving behind. It's a resistance to letting go of what's no longer useful.
Yeah. And I think people have a fear of the mystery. It's the fear of the unknown.
Oh, yeah.
And yet everything really is a mystery.
Well, yeah.
And when you embrace it, it's so much fun.
Well, this is it, right? And one thing that's really fascinating, because, I've got to say up front, I used to be the control freak of the universe, right? I really did.
Great for you.
Yeah, exactly. And so, of course, I know what all of that is like, to be in those spaces, and I have worked through them. You'll probably hear some birds in the background. It's that time of day. So lots of birdies here. Yeah. And I think, that fear of the unknown is there when we're not present, actually.
Yeah.
Because if we're present, it's very rare that we can't be with whatever's in front of us, Whereas if we're in the past, in the future, always trying to work something out, then we're not very present. And so that fear of the unknown bubbles to the surface.
And would you say mystery is also a type of curiosity about things, about life? It's like back from the beginning when we were saying, ask lots of questions. It's that curiosity. It's that, trying to uncover the mystery, but also allowing it.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Breathed in the wrong way. I would say that it's partially that, definitely. Like, we all are mysterious in our own ways. There is no one on the planet that actually knows everything of who we are, including us, is my sense of it, And so there's definitely that side of it. So you can always be more curious about who you are. And then I also think there's another part to it. For those of us who've had many, many lives, we have been part of the mysteries. We have been part of the creation of the mysteries in many cases, or the hiding of the mysteries, or and now I think it's our time for the decoding of the mysteries, because there's been so many stories, like you can look at the Yeshua Mary Magdalene story as one. You can look at all the Greek gods and goddesses. There's all these different stories, and they're all different mysteries. And when you start to well, you can look at them all, or you can literally start from here and now and go, well, what are the mysteries that are available for me to actually explore and to play with and to, you know, have adventures with?
Yes, yeah, and once again, better questions. And do you think that opening yourself up to, um, you know, asking the better questions about the mystery of who we are, do you think that's more important now as we come up to 2020? What's the, is there like a portal opening, or is
I
the
think,
energy just a bit higher vibration?
yeah, look, I think definitely there's energies opening up, and there is portals opening. There is, you know, different energetic possibilities now than we've had in a really long time,
Yeah.
right? So yes, I definitely think now is the time. But, you know, now is the time it's been for 30 years. Now is the time, right? And some of us are sick of saying now is the time. You know, but what I would say about that is that the more willing you are to be open, the more willing you are to take a very, I'm going to say, non-linear and potentially non-logical approach, where you're really willing for the quantum leaps to be there, where you're actually willing to trust what is in front of you. You know, that will make a huge difference. Last year, when I went to Europe, I thought I was going for a few weeks. I ended up
Okay.
going there and Hawaii and coming home 3 months later, right?
Oh gosh, very extended trip.
Yeah, it was very extended and it was very unexpected.
Yeah.
But I was very much just in the question of, well, what next? What next? And the next thing would evolve. And I got to have some absolutely magical, marvelous experiences, you know.
Yes.
And I think that we, you know, and people look at me strangely when I say I don't plan much of my trips. I might plan my classes, for example, my weekend events, because that involves other people and that's necessary.
Yes.
But other than that, I don't plan them because I know that if I'm acutely present to what is, then the magic will unfold.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that's really where the fun is.
No, totally. You know, and I think too, it takes a lot of pressure off. What I see is it takes a lot of pressure off because instead
Yeah.
of trying to work it all out, you
Yeah.
know, like we've been really trained to work it all out and have all the answers in advance before we choose anything.
Yes.
And what I see is, well, what if you just let it become what it can be? And what if you allow the universe to gift you the possibilities, you know, rather than actually thinking, well, I have to pay for all these things and how am I going to do that? And, you know, all the head stuff that we really wreck ourselves with.
And yeah, it wrecks the whole energy of the holiday too. And that's happened to me a couple of times when I've traveled, and to the point where I get a bit scared to travel now because I end up in so much fear. So, you know, if you do, but I don't have that fear in everyday life, as you know. I let things
No.
unravel. So I think for many of us, not just in the world of spirituality, I think a lot of people now are just really starting to let it unravel. They're not over planning or over trying to control things, and that's really bringing them and us so much joy. And when you can really see the synchronize, that's the how in sync everything can be, and
Yeah.
that's normal if we allow it.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, like I find that things I've been trying to work out for years, and I mean years, you know, this last trip, like I just went earlier in, I don't know, a few months ago, and literally on a real sort of whim, I ended up going to Paris to meet a friend of a friend.
Wow.
And what came from that has been nothing short of phenomenal. And it's actually answered something that I've been aware of as a possibility for years, but it was never showing up. And literally through a series of very simple interactions, magic, pure magic has been created. And I've actually started to create what I've known was possible, you know,
Amazing.
just about my entire lifetime. Yeah.
And it wouldn't have happened if you didn't take those prompts. And that's the mystery.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
you know, part of the flow. So how can we invite ourselves, so the people watching, how can they invite themselves into a space of decoding the mysteries?
Yes. Okay, well, we've talked about curiosity already.
Yes.
I think for me, one of the biggest things is listening.
Yeah.
And when I say listening, listening to the subtle energies, listening to the little tiny prompts, you know, like when I was first going on that trip, for example, I thought I would go to the south of France because there was a couple of places I wanted to go, but my body was really tired. And when I looked at the travel time, because I really didn't want to fly, I really like going on the trains in Europe. It's such an adventure for me. And you always get to meet interesting people. And so I looked at it all and I was like, oh, I'm just too tired to do that. You know, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
And so I started asking questions. I was like, well, what else is there? If that's not available, what is available? And I think that question of what is available is really important, because we tend to look for what's not available and then knock ourselves out trying to create it.
Push, push, push. I'm going to make it work.
It's going to work because I'm determined. Yeah, I don't know anything about that one. Yeah. And so instead of doing that, if you just start to really listen and listen to those subtle energies, you know, and that even goes further. So when I arrived in Paris, my friend came to pick me up at the train station, and she had a dog with her because she's a nanny. And she said, "I'll watch the dog. It'll run away if it sees any small dogs." And it's a golden retriever, so a beautiful dog. Anyway, I looked at the dog and I was like, I'm like, I feel like that can change. So I said to her, look, bring the dog one afternoon and I'll see what I can do with it. You know, I did a little bit of energy work with the dog. Absolutely changed totally.
Wow.
Right. And so but then that situation led to the rest of the creation, okay, which is still ongoing and, you know, has been extraordinary in terms of what's gone on. Yeah. So that little tiny prompt of, oh, I feel like something can change with this dog. You know, this is how simple it is. And this is how subtle it is. Now, I could have ignored that. I could have gone, not my dog, not my problem, not my whatever, you know, but that does not create when we do that. And, you know, so I think that's the first thing. We've talked about not being too controlling. That's definitely, definitely right up there.
Yes.
I think also one of the things for me that's been really important has been allowing what I would call my true voice to emerge. And it's really interesting because most of us edit our voice for public consumption, right? And actually from that same story, what ended up happening was a tree asked me to put out basically some channeled information that a friend of mine had channeled, but the tree asked me to do the writing because word alchemist, right? And so I did. And it was a very public kind of I talk to trees moment, very public, you know. And but the result of that has been, you know, well, at the moment, as we're doing this interview, almost over 1,700 people have joined the Talking to Trees or Talking to the Earth group.
It's an amazing group, and incredible what goes on in there.
Yeah, it is. And so the thing is, though, if I had not had the courage to go, okay, this is who I really am, you know, and I know there's a lot of people who think I'm strange anyway, right? And this would have just been the last straw for some of them, right? So the thing is, but that willingness to go, you know what, I'm done with pretending I'm not magic, you know, it really has made an enormous difference. Yeah. And I think for so many of us, our mystery is literally so close to the surface, actually. But we have to be willing to take that step that feels like totally a step into the unknown, totally a step into air, you know. And yet, there's lots of very fascinating things that are coming from it. So I feel like it's courage. Ultimately, underneath all of that, there is courage.
Yeah. And, you know, support always shows up. And so there's a trust there needs to be a trust in that as well. And, you know, it can be quite fearful the first couple of steps, as we both know, but it becomes easier.
Well, for sure. And I think too, you know, a lot of that fear comes from, you know, being burnt at the stake and all of that kind of stuff, all of the very nasty history. You know, I always say to people, I feel like this last, you know, 1,000, 2,000 years, at some point in the future will be looked upon as the barbaric age, you know, because really we have been in so many ways. And, you know, and so I feel like so much of the fear comes from those kinds of things. And I highly recommend for every person who watches this, if you have that fear, you know, find a way to move through it. I have been working through it for 10 years for myself. And when I say that, not the same stuff all the time, so many layers. Because when you've lived a lot of lives, and, you know, I have a particular propensity for intensity, apparently. And so some of those things I've gone, wow, that was a bit much. What went on there, you know? Like, because sometimes I get a little movie and I'm like, oh, geez, what was I thinking? You know, where was my awareness in that 10 seconds? So yeah, but when we start to really allow our body to realize it's a different time, there's different possibilities, you know, it really makes a huge difference.
Yes.
So for me, that, you know, and it's just been layer after layer. And of course, I've done a lot of work on other people's fears. And of course, that when you are the facilitator, it also clears for you, you know, as you're working. So that's been a gift that many, many people have entrusted me with, that, you know, that stuff, because it is big and it can be really full on.
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
yeah, but no, I really believe that energy can shift very quickly and easily.
Yes.
And I don't believe in suffering in the pursuit of change. Let me put it that way.
And that's the biggest shift of all that I'm noticing over these last couple of years with the vibration lifting. You know, things don't have to be hard. They don't have to be push. You know, I'm going to get this done, even if it kills me. No, it can be such ease and such intentional shifting as well. So really beautiful.
I feel like there can be, I was going to say, I feel like there can be a lot of beauty in the shifting, actually.
Yes.
Sometimes you see someone absolutely just blossom, you know, when you move the heavy load off their shoulders or out of their head or wherever it might be sitting in their body. You just see this absolute beauty and blossoming. And I feel like, you know, the more we create that in the world, the less of the trauma, you know, is there, basically. And so there's less for that to hang on to, in essence.
Yeah, absolutely. And the you know, the heaviness there has, for many people, it's from the overthinking and from the history and from the stuff we get, you know, taught in society and genetically passed through to us. But you know, that heaviness often, and I know this was true for me, it's difficult to even know what the heaviness is sometimes, to identify that heaviness sometimes. So, you know, someone like yourself who really works beautifully on so many levels with people, to identify that for them and create that awareness of it. So there's the knowledge of it then and the awareness that really it's so enlightening for that person, and that's such a joy to watch the discovery. And I know personally it was a joy for me to discover that about myself as well. It's like, there is a way. It's like, oh, I can lift this. So and I know that you do beautiful work with people, and you know, for everybody listening, if you still are not fully aware of what's creating, you know, these doubts, these fears, these stuck points in your life, Lisa will definitely find them and help you through them.
It's just about a laser beam these days. It's like, there, that thing there, let's go there.
Absolutely. So you've written 2 books, and do you have another book that you're writing?
Oh, I probably have a few. So I have another nonfiction one that I started writing actually when the last one finished, but it just hasn't been up in, you know, like for me, I really work with the creative energy of what's there, what's really present with me. And that book, I wrote about half of it and then I kind of lost interest. But funnily enough, I've been thinking about it again this week. So who knows, it might still come to pass. And then I feel like that my next really big thing is going to be fiction. And when I say fiction, right? Like the kind of fiction that, you know, really takes people on a mysterious, adventurous journey that they just might like to enjoy for themselves.
Beautiful.
So so there's lots of playful stuff going on with the writing at the moment.
And the Wild Hearts Mysteria is fascinating. Is that a you know, just like a new way of saying, or a different energy behind how you help with the mysteries that people are
It's a
uncovering?
little different. Well, yes and more. Yes and more, I think, is the thing to say about that.
Okay.
So it's very interesting. In my, I don't know, 10, 12, I'm not very good at time, years of being an entrepreneur, you know, I've probably launched, I don't know, 130 things, if not more. And in all that time, there's only ever been two things that did not work.
Okay.
And when I say did not work, not a single registration, which I'm always like, what's going on there?
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, very unusual. And one of those was the beginning of what I thought was Wild Hearts, my first attempt at Wild Hearts. And it literally just wasn't the right energy.
Okay.
And then I was speaking with someone who's an astrologer. And she's like, there's magic all through your chart. What do you think about magic? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm good with magic, you know?
Yeah.
And she basically said, you need to start a mystery school. And I just looked at her. I was like, you've got to be kidding. Like, that was my, that's not what I actually said. It was my polite version, you know? Because I was a bit like, what? I did not, of all the things I thought she would say, that was not the one, right? But basically, it's all through my chart, which I think is very interesting because I've never really had anyone talk to me about my astrology chart before. And I just did it on instinct. I was like, that woman there, she's got something for me, you know, as we all do when we know that there's some piece of information to come.
Yes.
And so when I started to look at it, I thought, well, I don't really want to create a mystery school like the old ones, like the ones, I mean, you know, in other lives, been there, done that,
Yeah.
you know, got the whatever. And I really just was like, I'm not going to relive my same life. You know, I've been the shaman, I've been the, you know, the oracle, I've been all those things in other lives. And I just didn't want to relive that does not excite me, you know. Let's do something new.
Was that version of mystery school though different? Was that like
the old ones?
The old mystery schools were learning about magic, or whereas
look, they had a lot of, well, you know, it's funny, I did a little bit of research because I was like, what is it I don't want, you know? I had to like know what I didn't want before I could actually sort of look at, well, what am I creating here? And it was very interesting because yes, there was a lot of the ritual and the rules and years and years of study and what I really wanted to do, I realized, was, I mean, we're in a very different energy now, right? And so I wanted to bring people to the space where they could decode their own mysteries. Yes. Because we all have mysteries that we have held onto for eons, right? Yeah. And when we start to decode them, oh man, there's some magic that shows up. You know, there's been all sorts of amazing things. We're only at this point when we're talking for this interview about a month in of the first round. And people have been changing body things they thought they would never change. They have been healing, like all sorts of things are coming up because my process is very much about enabling them to have their own journey and their own experience. It's not about me giving all the answers. So do I do some clearing? Yes, of course I do, because all the fear things come up and, you know, those things. But it very much is about, if you're willing to dive deep into who you are, I'm just the catalyst. I say just, you know, but yeah, I am really, I'm just the catalyst, you know. I'm a very powerful, potent catalyst, but I'm still just the catalyst.
Yes, yeah, because people heal themselves. They need the
absolutely.
They need to be
absolutely
they need that opening created, which was what you really help with. Well, that's
and
really
it's safe,
exciting.
and I think it is. I want to say one more thing. It's the safe space.
Yes,
it's the space to actually go, I can say anything in here and it's going to be okay.
Yes,
because I think that's so very rare in the world we live in at the moment, you know, like it's really, it actually saddens me how rare it is at this point. It's like, wow, imagine if we just created safe spaces everywhere for people to be who they are.
Absolutely. And if that became the norm, then we wouldn't need the safe spaces. People could just be who they were.
Exactly, right? Exactly. But in the meantime, we're creating little pockets of them all over the world.
Absolutely, yeah. The meetup group that I ran in Canberra when I lived there was really for that purpose, for people to explore all the different avenues available that they may be able to use their energy work and their vibrational work and their magic. But it gave them a space, and for many of them, couldn't even speak about their dreams or their weird experiences to their partners, their workmates, their families. So it was such a joy to me to see some of those ones open up and say, oh, I had this really weird dream, or, you know, I went to this other planet, or this happened in meditation, and to be free to speak. It's such a joy to see that, and, you know, such a energetic joy for the person. And you would see that all the time in your mentoring and in your classes. It's such a relief and a release.
Yeah, well, it is. And I think, you know, at the moment, you know, I see so many people looking for freedom from an external source.
Yes.
You know, I mean, we're looking at our governments in horror. We're, you know, looking at a lot of things in horror at the moment. Let's just put it that way. And yet what I see is if we set ourselves free, there is nothing they can do, you know, and there are many, many, many different ways we can do that. But it really does come back to that sovereignty and that sense of going, I will have a voice no matter what.
Yes, yeah, and I will choose how I feel right now and not let them choose for me. Real empowerment. It's real empowerment. So, so Lisa, how can people work with you? Have you got a few different ways that people can work with you if someone listening is interested in opening up their mysteries?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of things. The Mysterious School, Wild Hearts Mysterious School, will be open again from early February to 2020.
Okay.
So there is a waiting list at the moment on the website. So if you just go to lisamurray.co/mysteria, you will be able to sign up and get your information when it's ready.
Perfect. I'll have all these links here for everyone to click on.
Yes, thank you. Oh yeah, that'll be good. That's much easier than me telling you more.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I'm going to be running some retreats in 2020. Definitely one in Hawaii. Most likely one in, I know, I love Hawaii. Oh my gosh. Don't even start me on that. Very magical one in Hawaii. I've already got quite a bit of the information. There will probably be one in Europe as well. And maybe one in Australia. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be a very international year next year. So we'll see about that. But so people can do that. And of course, there's always the one-on-one, you know, if you just want to get in there and sort some stuff out, then you know, there's a whole lot of information about the one-on-one on my website. So.
Absolutely. It's a great website, and you've got examples of your work on there as well, and all sorts of different things. And the group on Facebook, I'm going to have the link here for that.
Oh, yes.
Because it's a really beautiful group, and it also gives, you know, your courage to say, you know, this tree spoke to me. It's given other people the courage now to say, well, this happened to me too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's many, many amazing conversations, and that group is called Personal Conversations with the Earth, because I really wanted to expand it beyond the trees, because for me it's all about the elementals and the dragons, and you know, there's you know, the ocean and all sorts of different things. So and animals, for me, animals as well. So I really wanted to have people be able to share all of their experiences that maybe are considered at this point in time not normal, but probably are more normal than most people wish to know, you know.
Absolutely, yes. And you have a beautiful newsletter that goes out every week.
Oh yes, I do. Love Notes. Yes. That's, you can get to that on my website.
I've been on your list for a long time. So yeah, definitely for anyone listening, go to the website and definitely sign up for Lisa's Love Notes. It's a really lovely way to open up the day sometimes. Oh, there it is.
Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. And of course, you on that email list, you announce new things and what you're doing and all of that too.
Because there's always new things. That's one thing that you would have noticed. There's always new things.
always. And I think that's just going to intensify and get more rapid next year. And as we all raise in vibration. And go with the flow and unroll the mystery. Yes.
Well, you know, I think there's one thing I want to say about this, because, you know, when I was younger, I was terrified of who I was. I was literally like, I might be a bad person. I'm not sure I want to go there. Yeah, I know. It's kind of weird when you know me now, right? But this was literally what I thought.
Yeah.
And you know, I think when you're quite empathic and highly sensitive, or as I would like to call it, highly aware, you feel all the projections of all the stuff around you, you know.
Yes.
And I think one of the greatest discoveries I've had personally is literally, oh, I'm quite different to what I thought might have been the horror story underneath, you know, like actually, yes, have bad things happen to me? Of course, as for every person on the planet. Am I bad? No. And I think, you know, when you realize that, it sets you free to go on this journey, this adventure.
Yeah, that's something I think that needs to be introduced into parenting as well. You know, like,
Mm.
you're not a bad kid. What you just did was not such a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And that and that, you know, as adults we take it all on as well. So yeah, people changing their minds is such magic. I love
Yeah,
seeing it all unroll.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been really good fun, and all of the links are here for everybody watching. Please go and join the Facebook group, and definitely get onto Lisa's website and check out all of her beautiful work. Register for the mystery school.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there'll be lots of other intakes if they can't get into the first one.
Yeah, I think I'll probably do 3 a year at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
That's probably about what I can manage, you know.
yeah.
So yeah, but
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Well,
perfect.
thank you, Trish. I'm really
Oh,
grateful.
my pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank
Lovely
you.
chatting.
All right. So thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. I look forward to seeing you next week on the next episode of Trish Rock TV. Bye for now.